Have you ever walked into a room and sensed an inexplicable shift in the atmosphere, even before a word was spoken? This phenomenon is not a mere coincidence. Within each of us lies something that precedes our physical presence, energy, our aura, an unseen field that we radiate by our very essence. Our presence carries weight, it vibrates and announces itself before our voice is even heard. Carl Jung called this the self, the central organizing principle of the human psyche, where the ego meets the essence. When such alignment occurs, our energy becomes palpable, and to some it may seem frighteningly intense. Some are drawn to it, while others feel threatened, for our light, even without the slightest intention, can expose the shadows that others prefer to conceal. Since time immemorial, mythologies and cultural traditions have told of people whose energy seems to transcend the ordinary. The shaman entering the village and changing the collective mood, the charismatic individual resolving conflicts with their calm presence, or the person whose arrival in a room silences everyone as if time has stopped. What unites all these images? Internal consistency radiating outward, a living energy stirring the environment, an aura that knows no pretense, signs of a powerful aura that causes discomfort in others. A person's presence can be so strong and inexplicable that it leaves an indelible impression. It's not about appearance or words, but about something deeper, felt on a visceral level. People often say of such individuals, "There's something about that person." This something is a subtle density of energy, a harmony between the inner self and what one radiates outward. The body appears later, but the psyche is already present in the space. Carl Jung asserted that the psyche extends beyond the physical body. A person is more than just flesh and thoughts. It is a presence shaped by experience, integrated knowledge and beliefs. The more authentic the person, the more refined their energy, and the more unforgettable they become, even without any effort. This strength manifests quietly but undeniably, like a fragrance that is invisible yet sensed by all, evoking memories, emotions, anxiety, or peace. The trace a person leaves is a reflection of their internal alignment. Consistency is not rigidity, but rather the alignment between thoughts, feelings, and actions, creating a unique energetic signature, a frequency that does not fade with time. There is no need to try to explain yourself or hold back, as a person is not made to go unnoticed. People with a powerful presence often encounter discomfort from others. Their energy is perceived first, eliciting various reactions, resistance, projections, or admiration. However, it is not always possible to recognize the true essence of such an individual. The presence of such a person does not go unnoticed, inspiring others or making them feel threatened. Their energy has the property of activating and amplifying emotions, touching deeply hidden aspects of other people's personalities. As Jung stated, each individual carries a shadow, a collection of suppressed and rejected qualities necessary for social adaptation. This shadow, residing in the unconscious, is activated in the presence of a pure and intense aura, perceiving it as a threat. This happens not because of any actions of this person, but because they embody what the other person is not yet ready to accept in themselves. The truth can be frightening for those who hide behind masks. People in internal conflict tend to project their own unresolved problems and undesirable aspects of personality onto such a person. They become a mirror, reflecting their suppressed desires, unrealized potential, and unhealed wounds. This can cause irritation, sudden dislike, and even hostility, which seem causeless. However, there is also the opposite reaction. The expansive energy of such a person can be a catalyst for awakening for those who are ready. Their presence creates a kind of portal, allowing others to feel stronger, braver, and freer. They radiate the same energy, but its perception depends on the state of the receiver. Often, such a person becomes a living reminder of the existence of something greater awareness, integrity, and truth. Not everyone is ready for such a transformation. Some will prefer to distance themselves, while others, on the contrary, will feel drawn as if they have found what they were looking for, even without realizing it. The aura of such a person expands the energy field around them, and everyone reacts according to their inner state. Some people, by appearing in the lives of others, make the world brighter and more fulfilling, while others evoke fear, exposing what the world tries to hide. Interacting with the natural world, children and animals unlocks a deep respect and recognition rooted in understanding a person's aura. The aura, as an energetic or psychic field radiated by each individual, has an inextricable connection to the instinctive world. It is here that animals, possessing heightened sensitivity surpassing human perception, exhibit their unique abilities. Unlike humans, animals do not perceive words. They read energy. They are not misled by social status, appearance, or tone of voice. Instead, they grasp the essence, intention, vibration, and emotional state. An animal unerringly identifies when a person experiences nervousness, even hidden behind a smile. It senses fear, affection, imbalance, or serenity. This ability stems from a subtle, silent, and energetic form of communication inherent in animals. When a person's aura is clear, balanced, and harmonious, animals exhibit trust and naturally approach, feeling safe. This perception is instinctive, a kind of awareness that transcends rational thought. Animals, children, and nature itself represent manifestations of the living unconscious. As Jung asserted, the unconscious understands symbols, vibrations, and archetypes without needing explanations. It recognizes truth because it vibrates at the same frequency. When a person's aura is awakened, animals, children, and nature recognize this silent truth within them. A dog, cat, or even a wild animal may remain calm near a person whose energy radiates truth and presence. It seems nature has taught them to see with their bodies, not their eyes, perceiving not the external personality, but the real energetic field. Conversely, when internal chaos, hidden tension, or repressed emotions are present in a person, animals also detect it. They may distance themselves, exhibit suspicion, bark, or hide. This is not judgment, but rather an energetic reading in the language of nature. In this language, power manifests not in shouting, but in firmness and gentleness. Animals more easily establish connections with those who are in harmony with this quiet strength and calm kindness. The aura acts as a bridge, translating a person's presence into a language that transcends words, and animals are fluent in this language. The connection between auras and children is also profound, instinctive, and often seems magical, not in a mystical sense, but in the sense of purity, of perception. Children do not filter information through their minds, but use their energetic field. They are not yet fully shaped by social norms, so they perceive things as they feel, not as they are spoken. Before understanding words, they grasp the energy behind a gaze, the tone of voice, and the overall presence. An unbalanced aura can cause them anxiety, while a grounded and warm aura instantly calms them. When a person's aura is pure, sincere, and harmonious, children exhibit trust. The appeal of this phenomenon lies in the fact that it requires no effort or ostentatious activity, only presence and truth. The instinctive world, animals, children, and nature respond to this with a purity rarely found in adults. Sometimes a person, without intending to, has an intimidating effect on others. They enter a room with an unflappable demeanor, a calm gaze, without the slightest intention of demonstrating their superiority. However, they notice a defensive reaction rising in other people, tense postures, trembling voices, strained smiles. It is as if their mere presence causes them anxiety. At first, this can be difficult to accept, especially if the person is kind, values respect, and avoids anything that could be interpreted as arrogance. But the fact is that it is not what they do that frightens, but what they are. In Jungian psychology, there is the concept of the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted by society. And the more a person is locked in this mask, the more vulnerable it becomes in the face of someone's authenticity. This person is not playing any role, they are simply being themselves. But this simply being proves to be too much for those who continue to live in a state of defense. Their authenticity puts pressure on their illusions, and even if they do not pursue such a goal, it can be perceived as a threat. People begin to project their fears and complexes onto them, invent stories, attribute arrogance where there is only confidence, see coldness where there is only clarity, and this says more about themselves than about them. Their silence may be perceived as judgment, their firmness as insensitivity, their clarity as rigidity. It's because those who haven't embraced their own light often perceive something aggressive in the light of others. But there's a deeper meaning to this phenomenon. This person radiates an energy of inner alignment, and alignment is a rarity. It challenges everything that doesn't align with it. Their very existence without a word implies that one can live without pretending. And this shakes anyone who has built their life around roles and expectations. They don't need to soften themselves to make others comfortable, as that would be a betrayal of themselves. Some people will be inspired by their quiet strength, while others will react negatively, but that's not their responsibility. It's simply their way of reacting to what hasn't yet awakened within themselves. Yes, they do have an intimidating effect, but not because they seek to dominate, but because they expose the truth. And there are those who mistake presence for a threat because they've never known anything but absence. A person's presence can alter the energetic structure of the surrounding space, sometimes noticeably, sometimes imperceptibly to themselves. This isn't a display of power seeking universal attention, but rather an internal power that doesn't need self-promotion but has a tangible impact. When such a person enters a room, subtle changes occur. Some people involuntarily straighten up, others look away, and still others fall silent, as if obeying a tacit signal. For a moment it seems that the emotional atmosphere in the room undergoes a subtle adjustment. This isn't control in the direct sense, but rather a manifestation of field energy. The renowned scientist and healer Barbara Brennan, author of Hands of Light, asserted that a person's energy field extends far beyond the physical body. According to her, the human aura, like an invisible network, encompasses everything around us, interacting with the people, objects, and emotional atmosphere around us, even if we don't realize it. Brennan emphasized that this field carries subtle information about our essence, feelings, and experiences. That's why, when a person's energy is strong, harmonious, and true, it can transform space not through violence or pressure, but simply through its presence. Carl Jung spoke of symbolic presence, the living energy of a person which, even without intention, can awaken the unconscious in others. This is what happens when a person with strong energy enters a room. Their energy carries symbols and archetypes that reflect what lies dormant in the depths of the collective unconscious. They may, unknowingly, become the embodiment of certain forces that change the situation around them. Some call this a strong presence, but it's not an aggressive force, but rather a vibrational alignment that generates resonance. This resonance organizes, disturbs, and transforms. A person may not be aware of their influence, but the space around them is keenly responsive to their energy. The field always responds. Such a person's aura doesn't need a stage. It acts invisibly, and wherever they appear, nothing remains the same. A person's intuition easily picks up on subtle signals emanating from the people and spaces around them. This isn't simple guessing, and certainly not a mystical gift, but rather a silent reading of information, a special sensitivity that operates beyond logical thinking, yet possesses remarkable accuracy. For example, a person enters an unfamiliar room and immediately senses that something is wrong, even if everything seems fine on the surface. They can accurately determine when someone is uncomfortable, even if that person is trying to hide their true feelings behind a forced smile. They feel the tension hanging in the air, even when the atmosphere seems calm and peaceful. They just know, and that's all, as if their skin is breathing the surrounding atmosphere, as if their body is translating invisible codes. This is intuition, and when a person's aura is clear and expanded, it becomes a highly sensitive antenna, capable of capturing the slightest frequencies, nuances, and subtle vibrations, transforming them into instantaneous, yet surprisingly accurate perceptions. The famous psychologist Carl Jung argued that the unconscious communicates with us through symbols, emotions, and sensations, and that intuition is the language of the self. a kind of internal compass that doesn't shout loudly but only guides, doesn't explain but points the way, doesn't argue but reveals the truth. That's why a person immediately feels when the energy around them is disrupted, when someone is pretending that everything is okay, when the space seems heavy, oppressive, manipulative, or, conversely, safe and harmonious. At the same time, they don't need any proof, background, or context. This heightened perception can be quite unpleasant, as it allows one to see the truth before the facts become known. Often a person tries to convince themselves that things aren't so bad, that they're just overthinking, but deep down they already know. Their aura reads the information, their body reads the information, the language of vibration speaks for itself, and even without trying, they are constantly translating these signals. Sometimes this protects them from danger, and at other times, on the contrary, suppresses and oppresses them. They don't always want to know so much, they don't always want to feel so strongly, but they do feel, and this is not a flaw, but an awakened sensitivity. They possess a symbolic perception of reality, they see beyond the literal, they feel through layers, and in the modern world, this is a rare and valuable strength. Intuition cannot be taught, but it can be nurtured and developed, and the more a person is in harmony with their own truth, the clearer and more understandable the world around them becomes. Meaningless conversations drain life force. A person tries their best, a welcoming smile, an attentive nod, maintaining small talk about the weather and other banalities. However, something inside seems to shrink in the process of such a pastime. The energetic field of the personality rejects everything that lacks deep meaning. The aura unmistakably recognizes genuine presence, distinguishing it from a set of empty phrases intended only to fill the silence. The body reacts to this with a drop in energy levels, tightness in the chest, wandering thoughts. The inner voice seems to say, "There is nothing valuable for me here." And, in truth, this is indeed the case. A person is not created to wear social masks. Their presence requires authenticity, which sometimes scares those around them, because it implies real listening and genuine contact. It's not about a constant need for profound conversations, but about a desire for truth and connection. As Jung stated, the integrity of the personality is achieved through the integration of the unconscious, and superficiality is the complete opposite of this process. It is a refusal to look inward. It is role-playing and going in circles in order to avoid the essence. The very existence of a person points to this very center. However, such selectivity has a downside. Loneliness. The world is full of noise, but craves presence. When a person begins to silently demand authenticity in interactions, the circle of communication narrows. There are fewer conversations, but more meaning, fewer people, but more soul. As a result, loneliness ceases to be simply the absence of someone, but turns into a filter, into a clean space where there is no need to pretend to fit in. Those around them may unwittingly project their own, carefully hidden aspects of personality onto the person. The stronger and more harmonious their internal energy, the brighter the suppressed feelings and qualities are highlighted in other people. Sometimes it is enough to simply be present nearby to cause a storm of emotions, from excessive admiration and idealization to unfounded criticism and alienation. As is known from Jungian psychology, the shadow is the totality of everything that an individual had to suppress, reject, or forget for the sake of social approval. That is why someone's sincerity and openness can cause subconscious discomfort in others. Genuine self-expression creates a kind of disturbance in their inner world. The presence of such a person exposes what others are desperately trying to hide from themselves and those around them. Their aura acts like a mirror, reflecting their own shadows, and not everyone is ready to see themselves in such a reflection. It is important to understand that it is not about the person themselves, but about what is manifested through them. Therefore, it is necessary to learn to distinguish what is their own experiences and what is the projections of others. This is needed not to protect against attacks, but to preserve one's own integrity. Becoming a target for projections is not a curse, but rather a sign that that a person is radiating light. And light, as you know, brings everything hidden out of the shadows. In silence there is sometimes more meaning than in a stream of words. Silence is not just the absence of speech, it is the conscious management of one's own energy. A person who can restrain themselves from empty talk and vain justifications saves a valuable resource. In this inner space, free from unnecessary bustle, a rare quality is born: presence. Presence is the ability of a person to influence others without a single word. They enter the room, and the atmosphere changes as if their very existence radiates a special power. This energy does not need screams or justifications, it simply is, and it is this quiet being that attracts attention. Those around them feel this power, although they cannot always explain its nature. People with a strong aura realize that they do not need to constantly prove or explain anything. They know that silence can be more eloquent than any words, and the unsaid sometimes holds more power than 1,000 phrases. Conscious silence radiates self-assurance, attesting to comfort in one's own presence. A person doesn't need to fill the space to prove their worth. Their energy speaks for itself. Overly loud personalities may attract attention, but they often lack magnetism. People with a strong aura are remembered not for their verbosity, but for the feelings they evoke in others. A well-chosen silence becomes an extension of a person's vibration, and vibration, as we know, does not lie. Ultimately, one of the most powerful signs of a strong aura is the ability to influence others in silence, simply by being present, whole, and self-sufficient. Such a person's energy speaks for itself, requiring no additional confirmation. One can observe a phenomenon of spontaneous revelations when casual acquaintances suddenly begin to share intimate experiences, childhood memories, old grievances, and hidden fears. At times, in the course of an ordinary conversation, tears involuntarily well up in the other person's eyes. It seems as if a safe space opens up before them, where, without understanding why, they are ready to drop the mask, at least for a while. This happens not because of persistent questioning, but thanks to the ability to occupy a certain position, to withstand pauses, discomfort, and another's pain, without immediately trying to fix it. The aura is perceived not as pity, but as presence, which is a great rarity in the modern world. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung asserted that the unconscious is always looking for a way to express itself, and when it finds a suitable vessel, an energy field characterized by stability, the absence of judgment and expectations, it begins to speak, sometimes quite frankly. The person capable of accepting another's truth without trying to change it, listening attentively with their whole being, and offering a kind of attention that seeks not answers, but connection, acts as such a vessel. The unconscious recognizes this. That is why people start talking, not understanding why, and realize it only after the fact. Then they look with some embarrassment, as if they have revealed too much, but it was not exposure, but relief. Presence creates space, and space in the modern world is healing. The aura does not force vulnerability, but allows it. This person does not extract the truth, but invites it, and only someone who is in harmony with their own shadow is able to withstand another's without breaking. Therefore, one should not be surprised if strangers tell things they have never told anyone, or if friends note that they feel different around them. The explanation lies in energy, the psyche, and the unconscious. This person is a symbolic vessel, and only those with resilience can hold what others can no longer bear alone. The freedom of a person who has chosen the path of self-expression often causes discomfort in those who prefer to remain in the shadows. Truly, free people influence others simply by their existence, without resorting to loud statements. Sincerity does not require aggression to make others feel awkward. It is enough just to be oneself to make those who hide behind masks feel uncomfortable. Freedom seems to bring to the surface what others seek to hide deep within their souls. There is no need to accuse or lecture anyone. It is enough just to be oneself, without feeling the slightest guilt. A person becomes a mirror that not everyone is ready to look into. Their way of life seems to pose a silent question. And you, are you still playing a role? In a world where obedience is valued above all else, freedom represents a certain danger. The lightness of a free person exposes the heaviness of the shackles that others still bear. Their courage highlights the cowardice of those who prefer comfort and conformity. That is why free people cause anxiety even without striving for it. Their very energy poses a challenge without touching, irritates without offending. The presence of such a person becomes a silent threat to those who have not allowed themselves to live life to the fullest. People with a powerful aura do not need intrusive attempts at persuasion or tiresome proofs of their rightness. Their existence in itself becomes an act full of transformative power. Has it not happened to you that after leaving a place you felt that your presence continued to be felt? This is a sure sign that you have left an indelible mark. This is exactly what happens when a person's aura carries significant weight. Others feel their absence. The silence that reigns after their departure speaks volumes. It's not just a simple disappearance, but an energetic memory. The energy that a person emits leaves an imprint in space, capturing sensations. When they leave, something remains. Sometimes it's discomfort, in other cases, emptiness, and often a presence that continues to inspire, challenge, or touch those who remain. It cannot be bought with money, achieved by force, or imitated. It is what a person truly is. A strong aura does not depend on external activity. It creates an effect even in silence, even in absence. What a person has created within themselves continues to resonate outward even after they are gone. Some are forgotten even in life, others are remembered because they were truly present. The person was there, but they remained. And finally, the ultimate evidence of a powerful aura, capable of causing discomfort in others, is that it is formed as a result of deep inner transformation. That special impression that people get from a person, their confidence, calmness, inner light, arises not from books read or beautiful sayings, but from personal experience of overcoming difficulties, from sleepless nights of self-analysis, from painful moments of rethinking life when they had to give up a part of themselves to find something more authentic. Often the aura is spoken of as something that arises on its own, but the true strength of an aura is the result of internal work on oneself. The aura is not given from birth. It is formed through the acceptance of pain, through honesty with oneself, and through the ability not to betray one's principles. A person radiates light not because they have never encountered darkness, but because they have learned to overcome it. This inner strength, which simultaneously disturbs, attracts and delights others, originates in the depths of personal experience. This person has seen themselves as weak, unattractive, lost, but has found the strength to return to wholeness. Now their aura speaks for them, testifying not to strength as such, but to the path traveled, to courage, and to the beauty that blossoms when a person stops running away from themselves. Often people talk about some kind of radiance, special magnetism, or even a completely different atmosphere emanating from a person. However, in reality, they feel something much deeper, embodied truth, a soul that has passed through the crucible of trials and managed to maintain its integrity. There is no longer room for pretense, only the authentic self. And this radically changes everything around. If a person has reached such a state, they realize that it is not about superiority over others, but about a higher level of awareness. The considered signs are not labels or spiritual marks, but rather a reflection of internal work, painstaking, deep, and often associated with loneliness. They testify that a person's presence has weight not because of a desire for attention, but because they have ceased to conform to the generally accepted framework of ordinariness. The energy of such a person can cause anxiety in others because it is like a mirror, reflecting inconsistencies, suppressed feelings, and unresolved internal conflicts. This happens not intentionally, but simply because their existence in itself activates, disturbs, and transforms. A person's aura is their spiritual signature, something beyond control. It is the invisible trace of their truth, and the deeper the inner harmony, the stronger this field becomes, more real, tangible, and ultimately impossible to ignore. On the life path of everyone who refuses to live by someone else's rules, misunderstanding and projections of others will inevitably be encountered. This is a kind of payment for loyalty to oneself and one's principles. Do not underestimate your merits and dim your inner light just because it may dazzle those who are not yet ready for its brightness. Do not slow down your pace if it causes discomfort to those who are just beginning their journey. Do not try to fit into a framework that no longer corresponds to the scale of the personality. The very presence of such a person in the world becomes a reminder, a kind of mirror, and a silent call to awakening for others. As Carl Jung once remarked, the collective unconscious reacts to what it has not yet integrated. Such people are unique, and their purpose is not to please everyone, but to live in accordance with their truth. It is necessary to accept your energy, respect what you carry within yourself, and not apologize for your integrity. After all, in the end, a person's aura speaks not about themselves, but about what they awaken in the surrounding world with their existence.